Hey everyone, it's Carissa at Sprinkled with Glitter. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing a fun interactive card project featuring some new products from Fawn. I am using the Reveal Wheel die set along with the Reveal Wheel sentiment set and the little speech bubble add-on. So here's a look at some of the new products. This here is the Reveal Wheel die set, and it creates a fun interactive portion on your card. That wheel spins, and you can use it to reveal different sentiments, colors, pattern papers, stamped images. Really, there's tons of possibilities. These Reveal Wheel sentiments were sized perfectly to fit within the window that is created on the card front to reveal inside those windows, and that'll make more sense as we go along. Now, Fawn was super smart because they created some add-ons. This little Sweetest flavor add-on here all the way on the right-hand side, that little piece fits inside the puzzle portion of the Reveal Wheel base portion so that you can add a different style window. And the same thing with this little speech bubble window, which is what I'm going to be using. It fits right inside that little notch at the top. So here's a look at a couple of windows. That first one comes with it. This is actually the speech bubble add-on, and I'm just putting it right inside of that little notch, and I'm keeping it in place with some delicate surface painter's tape. You could also use some washi tape. And then I'm going to die cut this along with the wheel base and the wheel itself. So I'll just stack all those up, run them through my die cut machine. And you can see I am left with the card front that has that window cut out for the speech bubble. I popped out the little window portion on that base piece, and I'm going to cut that base piece once again without the window. And then I also threw the little speech bubble frame in there. So to assemble your reveal wheel, I'm using a little brad. You'll need a brad, and I've put it through the base portion and the main portion of the wheel. So you can see there's the base portion. There's my main portion. I have the little indented lines that this creates facing up towards the top where I'm working right now. And then I'm just going to open up that brad to keep it in place. So you can see those are attached. Now I'm adding some foam adhesive to the base portion of the wheel, that tiny circle that's on the back. And this is going to be what keeps it onto the base. That portion is going to remain still and the top portion is going to spin. So I don't know if you can see it here, but there are some little lines that are pressed into this wheel when it is die cut. Those little lines are going to help you position this in the correct space. So you're going to hold this behind your window and you're going to slide that wheel up until you do not see the deboss line through the window. And you're going to slide it over towards your left-hand side until you don't see the deboss line on that notch on the side there. So that's the hardest part of this, but it really isn't that difficult. Those deboss lines make it really easy. And then once you have it in place, you'll just position that over the base, the portion without the window, and adhere that down. And then you can take off your wheel and you can do your stamping. So that's the basic assembly of the reveal wheel, but I wanted to take this and kind of step it up a notch. I wanted to use this Selfie frame die. It creates a little cell phone, and I felt like the window was a little too high to use with this die. So I'm going to do some partial die cutting so that I can move the window and the notch down on this card front panel. I'm going to do this with a little bit of partial die cutting. So you can see here I've positioned my reveal wheel base onto my linen cardstock and onto my die cut machine, and I'm letting the top portion of this die hang out of the cutting sandwich. So I'm going to cut everything but that top line. Now you can see I have my window and I have my notch, and I'm going to need to move the top cut line up. So I'm going to take out the window that's on this base, and I'm going to use the bottom portion to cut my top line. It doesn't really matter, but it meant I didn't really have to work around that notch and that sort of thing. So I'm placing this back onto my die cut machine, and I'm kind of fitting that die into those previously cut lines that are along the bottom, making sure that the stitching that was cut before lines up with the stitching that's going to cut, and that those side lines are kind of lined up. You'll be able to kind of feel it position into place. I didn't feel like my top of this area was going to be quite high enough, so I went ahead and adjusted it a little bit more. And now I am just going to do some partial die cutting, cutting just the top portion of this. So you can see I've covered everything but the bottom part of that die. So anything that's between the two plates is going to cut. So what I'm left with is this really extended version of the card front. Now I want it to be the same exact size as the original design. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put this back in place. I'm going to line the top portion that I just cut up with the top portion of the die. And then I'm just going to partially die cut again, but I'm only die cutting the bottom part. So I realized this is a little more complicated because I wanted to move the window. You can see the original version here on my left-hand side, and here is the version on the right-hand side where I've moved the window and the notch down. Now, I couldn't just flip this over because that window was still too low for me to use with that Selfie die. So that's why I had to do the partial die cutting, and it does make it a little more complicated, but in the end, once you kind of get it figured out, it's really easy to do. Now, I didn't want to go through the process of all that partial die cutting again to cut my base piece because I don't need a window in it. So what I did was I just kind of marked out a plain piece of cardstock. I cut it down, and to cut my notch, I'm actually using a circle die. So I've just kind of marked it out and cut it down to where it's going to fit behind the piece that I just did all that partial die cutting with. Now I needed to recut some of the portions of my reveal wheel, and I needed to start cutting several of these selfie frames, this little cell phone here, which is so much fun. And I'm going to start the assembly process again. So I've put my brad through the wheel base, and now I'm going to also put it through the wheel itself. I have the debossed lines facing up on this wheel so that I'll be able to see them when I position it through the window. And I'm going to just open that brad to keep the wheel base and the wheel held together by that brad. I'm going to put some foam adhesive on the wheel base itself, making sure that it doesn't overlap onto the wheel portion because I don't want it to get in the way of the turning of the wheel. And now I'm going to hold this behind the window, and I'm going to move the wheel over until I do not see the deboss line on that notch. And I'm going to move it up until I do not see the deboss line through the window. So you just want to move it just to where you don't see those deboss lines through those two places. Then I'm going to position it over the base, the portion without the window, and I'm going to adhere that down. And now my wheel will be in the perfect place on this base, and I can go ahead and remove the wheel and do my stamping. So I'm just double checking my work there. I want to make sure that before I move on, everything's perfect, and it is. So now I've grabbed the Lawn Fawn Screen Time stamp set. This is from their summer release. It's all a part of their new release. And I'm taking a couple of the little speech bubble or text bubble sentiments, and I'm stamping them in some Lawn Fawn inks onto some plain white cardstock. I'm using the Lawn Fawn Merman ink and the Lawn Fawn Bubblegum ink. And because I don't have the coordinating dies, I'm just using my scissors to fussy cut these out. So this little sentiment here says just a text to say or a little text to say, and then the reveal wheel portion is going to have all the sentiments that go with that. And then I cut out the little heart as well, the little text bubble heart, which I thought was really cute. So I've gone ahead and cut several of my little cell phones and several of the speech bubble frames from some white cardstock, and I'm going to start stacking these up using my Zig 2-way glue pen. I'm kind of obsessed with using stacked up die cuts for dimension lately. I don't know what it is, but there's just something about it that gives it such a, it's like, it makes it really feel substantial on the front of your card. So you can use foam adhesive in lieu of stacking all of these die cuts up. But what I'm going to do is stack up 5 of these plain white die cuts. And my top layer will be the same die cut, but it's cut out of the Essentials by Ellen Oyster Gray cardstock. So that just gives me a bunch of dimension and a really weighty element for the front of my card. I'm going to do the same thing with these speech bubble frames that are designed to go around that little window that I created on my card front so that these have dimension as well. And I didn't really want to try to put foam adhesive around those little thin frames, so that's why I did it that way. I didn't have the patience for it. And if you'll notice, my watch is on, my watch is off, my ring is on, my ring is off. I had to come back to this card like I don't know, 6 times because I had baseball games and mommy things to do. So you know how that is. So I've gone ahead and I've positioned my cell phone on the front. I traced around it because I'm going to add some color behind there. And now I have my wheel on the base and I'm just marking like 4 equal sized areas on this wheel, just kind of the edges, so that I can turn the wheel until I see the little mark centered in that notch. And then I'm going to trace the window onto the wheel. Now I'm using a blue wheel here. I changed to a white wheel in the end. But you can see those little marks on the edge of my circle are just helping me kind of divide this out to where all of my sentiments are going to be equally spaced. And tracing the window is going to show me where I need to stamp each of the sentiments so that I know that it's going to be centered within the window. So once I get all of these areas traced, and by the way, I had to borrow my son's pencil for this because apparently I do not own a pencil. But once I got these all traced, I went ahead and took all of the little hello sentiments and I stamped them in pure graphite ink onto my wheel. And these are all just ways of saying hello in different languages. So it's ni hao, it's hola, hello, and salute. So all of these different languages, different ways to say hello. And then I went ahead and erased all of those pencil lines so that you won't see them as the wheel is turning. Now for this card front, I wanted to make this cell phone stand out a little more. So I started by adding a little N0 Copic marker to that traced out area, but I felt like it needed something more. So I'm going ahead and using some Post-it notes to mask out around this area that I've traced where the cell phone will kind of be over that. That will be revealed in the screen portion of the cell phone. And now I'm inking up a Wonky backdrop stamp from Essentials by Ellen in some limestone ink, and I'm just stamping that into that area so that there's a little bit of pattern. It's just going to help the cell phone feel more separate from the card base because there's so much white going on. So I've done several steps and I'm finally ready to commit to my layout and start adhering things. So I adhered both of those little text bubble sentiments with some foam adhesive inside of that cell phone. I'm now using the Zig 2-way glue pen to adhere my speech bubble frame that is stacked up there. And I have adhered the white portion of my cell phone to that card front as well. I'm going to add some foam adhesive to that base that I cut out, and I'm going to add it all the way around to make sure that it's not touching my wheel. And then I decided it would be fun to back the top portion of the cell phone with a little bit of this clear plastic just to kind of make it feel more like a screen. So I did that by attaching it with some score tape there, some 1/8" score tape. Then I decided my speech bubble needed a little something extra, so I went ahead and cut that out of some gold glitter cardstock and adhered that on. And you can see I've gone ahead and just put everything together. So my cell phone's in place, my sentiments are in place, speech bubble in place. And now I am taking the backer off of the foam adhesive and adhering the top portion of this reveal wheel to the base. And you can see there I have it all put together, and when I turn that wheel, I have the different sentiments revealed. So this little arrow die cut comes from that reveal wheel die set as well, and I just cut it out of some Oyster gray cardstock and I'm adhering it alongside of that wheel so that the recipient knows to kind of turn that wheel to reveal other things. And then I'm taking these little hearts and I have colored them with an RV13 Copic marker. And they are from that Selfie frames die set. And I just went ahead and adhered those to my card front. And you can see how fun this card is with all those changing sentiments. It would be so much fun to change the color behind there or put different pattern papers, put different stamped images behind there just so that you can turn the wheel and reveal different things. I think there's a lot of different ways that you can really use this. And you can see I finished my card off with a strip of some pattern paper from the Lawn Fawn Really Rainbow 6x6 pattern paper pad. I do have a little strip of gold glitter cardstock along that card front as well, which I just think adds a little sparkle, which, you know, I gotta have my sparkle. So that finishes off my card for today. A really fun card project, interactive card with these great dies from Lawn Fawn. I did kind of make it a little more complicated than it needed to be because I wanted to move my window down. But overall, if you use this reveal wheel die as it's intended, it's really easy to put together. So it was just a matter of adding a little bit of partial die cutting to get the results that I wanted. As always, I will have links to the featured products in the description at YouTube, but head on over to the coordinating blog post. Over there, I'll have more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. Thanks for stopping by today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to give it a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any of my paper crafting and card making video tutorials. I appreciate you hanging out with me today. Thanks for watching, and until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day. Hey, thanks for sticking around to the very end. If you've made it this far, you know you're my favorite. If you want to subscribe to my channel, click that button on the left side of the screen, and here's a couple more video tutorials I thought you might enjoy.